Good morning, Hitton. Is it Hitton? Hitton? And Renzo, thank you for joining. My name is Laurie O'Neil. I'm part of our ALC team and I represent the luxury community. But also I've been invited to speak on what are known as HOA or homeowners associations. So I'd like to make this interactive, and so stop me should you have any questions as I walk through the material. I have a brief presentation, and then I actually have a copy of bylaws and rules and covenants to show you for demonstration. And I also pulled up a listing so we can look at where the information is provided or not provided, and then how you would go about doing your due diligence and finding some of that information. I've been with our office for over 5 years now, a licensed real estate agent for over 7. I love Keller Williams. I was with another broker for a year, which was not a good experience for me. So I found my home in KW. I love it, every minute of it, love it, real estate and every minute of it. What qualifies me to speak on HOA and homeowners association? That I've been on our board. I live in a townhouse community over in Flemington in Hunterdon County, and I've been on our board for many, many years, as well as president of the HOA. And my experience has really brought me created a subject matter expert, if you will, when I am in fact out showing townhomes and condos. So I hope I can share information with you as far as, what they are, how they operate, and what key questions do you want to ask when you're serving your clients. So with that, I'll go ahead and start. And I think it's important that you understand some definitions about an HOA. And an HOA is a homeowners association. And there's an actual HOA board, and that board is elected by 5 members from the actual community in which the HOA resides. So if you're part of a townhouse condo, that board is actually 5 residents that live there. Or they may be owners of a property, and they may be renting them out, but they still are eligible to be part of that board and elected. And that key board is responsible for following what is known as the bylaws. And they also can interpret the bylaws and implement additional rules and covenants for a community. And those are considered the standards by which everyone is expected to live within the community. It's close quarters, and you want everybody to be able to get along with as much objectivity in governing the association and the community versus subjectivity, which is, the variety of hidden agendas and personal opinions that sort of can be muddled into the whole operation. A board has a fiduciary responsibility to the community. So many of them have a $500,000 or more budget annually, where they have to use those funds 100% to the community to maintain the community. And those communities may have a variety of amenities and features to the community that they have to protect and maintain. And we can get into that in a minute. The rules and so there's bylaw documents that are created that it starts with the builder. The actual builder of the community provides the bylaws, and these bylaws are pretty much standard language at this point in time, with the ability to change them once the community has been turned over 100% to the community of the residents, that is, from the builder. And there's a whole process for that. That's a little bit of extra knowledge. We can get into that later. But the residents do have the ability to change bylaws when they take it to an attorney, the language is written, and then there's 2/3 of a vote, most likely, in the community to be able to change that language. So as an example, I'm going to just pull up what bylaws look like. So I live in Townsend community off of Walter Ferran in Hunterdon County. And this is quite a thick document. And this goes through all of what they call the bylaws, or restrictive and protective covenants. There's many names for it, but generally in the industry, we just use the bylaws. And so this will walk through all of the items that are included in this document with addendums that clarify or speak to some of the information in the bylaws. I'm not going to go through this in great detail, but this just shows you where the developer and his ability to rule and govern the community until he in fact hands it over to the association or the homeowners directly. So it starts with a list of definitions. You can see board or board of trustees, and bylaws, common expenses, common property, and so on. And I'm just going to pause here because common property is a key portion of the property that you need to understand. So when you're in these planned unit developments, you have, it's interesting where you may have a plot of land. So you have your building, you have your property, and then there's what they call private property, which if you may have a backyard that's been fenced in, or you may have a front garden, or you may have quite a bit of property, you'll see it on your deed. You can actually have a survey done in some of these, especially in a townhouse community, that shows you exactly what your piece of property is. However, there may be a permanent easement, as they call it, of the common property. So that piece of property that you think you own, you do own it. However, there's an easement whereby the Board of Association governs that common property. And that common property might be on your what your actual boundaries are of your own property, and they supersede anything that you can do on that property. And so that means cutting the lawn, maintaining any kind of landscaping, telling people that they can't walk their dog over there, and so on and so forth. So the common property is that property which the Board of Association, the board not owns, but it protects and has the fiduciary responsibility. And we'll get into more of that later on. But in any event, there is definitions here that begin the document, and so that you better understand it as you move forward. As a real estate agent, you're not going to read this. This is pages and pages and pages. What you'd like to get to is what they call the rules and regulations or covenants. And this is basically a watered down version of what you can and can't do on a property. So this is going to be an interpretation and summary of those original bylaws down into the rules and regulations. And some of these rules and regulations are how many pets you can have, if you can even have pets. There are communities that do not allow pets, and you have to vet that out. You also have to vet out, what they can and can't do as far as what they own in their area. Is there an easement of common area where it will be maintained by the HOA? Or is it something that you can do, such as I want to extend a patio, I want to extend a deck, I want to paint the deck the color I want to paint it. These rules and regulations are going to govern that, where they may say yes or no, or there's a process to get permission to do things differently, etc. So this is most likely the document that you're going to ask for, is either the rules and regulations and or bylaws. And we'll get into that. I just want to show you what this is. Let me go back to my presentation here. Sorry. Okay. So the thing that you want to understand in a planned unit development is ownership versus style. I live in a townhouse. I live in a condo. Condo is a big word because condos are most likely a garden apartment style, 3, 4, 5 levels in the area, where it's a 1-floor unit, 2, 3 bedrooms, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, a couple of bathrooms, etc., with a balcony or some sort of deck. But I think it's important to understand what the difference is in ownership versus style. So a fee simple ownership is usually a single house type property where you're responsible for all the exterior maintenance. Condo ownership means that you're responsible for the interior, but you're not responsible for the exterior. You're paying those HOA fees to maintain the exterior of your property. And you have to be careful because some of the fee simple ones do have a little bit of the board maintenance involved in there. So I live in a townhouse community. We are fee simple. And what that means is that I am responsible for all of the exterior of my home, the windows, the sidings, the doors, the deck, etc., with the exception of the roof, the gutters, and leaders. The roof, the gutters, and leaders are the responsibility of the homeowners association. So you're paying dues that should there be an issue with the roof, it's expected that the HOA would pay for that. Then we get into style. I live in a condo, I live in a townhouse, I live in a single family home. There are single family homes that actually have condo ownership. They live in where the condo ownership means that the exterior will be maintained by the HOA. Everybody clear on that? That's a little bit of a tricky thing. Okay. So I think those are two key principles that you need to be aware of. So let's go into some of the details here as a real estate agent, what you would like to understand. So usually the HOAs have a property management company that is providing all of the collection of the association dues or fees, the distribution and of payments to vendors who maintain, such as landscapers, pool cleaning services, etc. They also prepare the meeting minutes, and they go through and help run the monthly meetings that the boards have with their communities. There's usually a closed section where the board themselves meets, and they discuss all items, financial and personal, about the association and the community. And then there's usually an open session where all of their business has to be conducted in front of the community. There has to be an open audience. And so what stays behind closed doors is typically personal information. If there are late fees, if there are people in arrears, it's just that personal touch where we don't discuss a specific residence's situation in the public. That's usually the differential of that. But the board is required to perform all of their business in front of an open session. The monthly fees and dues are something that you're going to want to understand. Assessments. This is a good one, because assessments, and this is an additional fee that's applied, and assessments occur when the board has not performed their fiduciary responsibilities the way they should be. And that is if it comes time where if the HOA is responsible for the roofs or the repair of the pool, etc., and it's thousands of dollars, and they didn't save enough in their reserves study to be able to pay for it, then the community can be assessed additional money. So not only is there monthly reoccurring fees or quarterly fees, there can be additional fees for assessments. And that's one thing that when you pull the condo association form in your contracts in New Jersey, there is a little section there that states, are you aware of any assessments? And that is one of the questions that the title company will be asking, are there any assessments? Because it may not have been disclosed, but it is something you also want to vet out. There are such things as associated recreational fees. And what that is that there are communities such as, I'm going to cite Lake Cushtunk over in Hunterdon County. It's in White House Station, where they have condos, townhouses, and single family homes all contained in that development. And the association recreation fees are additional fees collected to maintain certain common areas, such as the pool house, playgrounds, and anything around the lake that the HOA may be responsible for. And the reason they separate this out is because with the single family dwellings, they are responsible for all of their landscaping and any of their exterior items that they have to maintain. However, because they live in the community, they want them to be able to enjoy those common areas or recreational areas. So they have two separate budgets. And so they collect according to what the fiduciary responsibility is for recreation versus maintenance of exterior and common areas. The other thing you want to ask is, what amenities does the community offer? Is there a swimming pool? Is there tennis courts? Are there playgrounds? Is there a pool house? Is there a gym? Can the pool house be rented? Those types of things come up as far as, and they also help sell a community when you're listing it, but you want to make sure that you list all of those amenities in your listing when you list a townhouse or community, townhouse condo community like this. Any questions? Let's go to an example so I can help walk through this. Can everybody see I'm in bright? Property is 37 Gallo Court in Lawrenceville.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, perfect. All right, so underneath here it says ownership interest, and it's a condominium. All right, association is HOA. The structure, it's an end townhouse, so that's the style or structure. How many stories is it? It's 1. There's no waterfront, and yes, there's a garage, because some condos, townhouses do have garages. And do they have a basement? Yes, and sometimes no. So now I have to look at, well, here's the association community information. So is it an HOA? Yes. Who's the property management company? It's RCP Management. And here is their contact information right here. This information goes on that condo form as an addendum to the contract. And you want to make sure that you populate this information, because title's going to come back and ask you, we need the HOA information. So be able to provide that. What title is going to do is they're going to do what they call a condo certification, and they're going to verify this information here. And they're also going to verify any additional fees, such as a recreational fee, if it's not noted here, and also any assessments, as I had mentioned earlier. The monthly fee for this is $430. Which is in line with a condo style or as condo ownership type of property, because the cost of that $430 goes to maintaining not only the common areas, but also the exterior of the property. And also because the property was built in 1987. So they have been in existence a lot longer than some of your 2000 to 15 community structures. And so you're going to see where they're saving money for new siding, possibly new windows, new roofs, etc. They also may have a lot of amenities that require additional fees versus some of the other condo associations where you're going to see a lower rate, and that's because the money does not cover, or they may not have the amenities that they need to maintain. And it also may be fee simple, where the owner may be responsible for the exterior.
Hello, Anne-Marie speaking.
Hello? Oh, okay. So do you have a question?
Mm-hmm.
Can we put somebody on mute? Okay. So here's your property management person that would be service.
Unless I mean, it could be negotiable. Like they're pretty.
Anne-Marie, do you want to go on mute? Anne-Marie, do you want to go on mute?
I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I have to mute myself.
So here's your, let's go back to management information here. There's also a management company phone here, and then an HOA phone, which is interesting. They're 2 different phone numbers. And here's a personal contact information, because usually there is a point of contact from that property management company here. Here, you want to list out the association and what it includes. There's common area maintenance. They do the exterior building. There's lawn maintenance of that. There's pool, and there's snow removal. And sometimes trash removal is included in that. So you want to make sure that whatever that fee includes is listed here. That should also be in the bylaws. Here are the amenities that they're also maintaining. They have basketball courts, they have a clubhouse, they have an outdoor pool, and they have tennis courts. So there's a lot there to maintain. And so that's why you can see a $430 monthly fee. Now, one of the things here that the client didn't, or the listing agent didn't list, is what's the capital contribution. So a capital contribution is an additional fee, a one-time fee, in the amount of, it's usually 2 times. Now the board can establish any amount they want as an initiation fee. It's a one-time fee at closing that goes into this capital contribution account, where the board has the choice to use that money any way they so desire, within the fiduciary responsibility of maintaining the community. But the baseline or the benchmark is 2 times the monthly fee. So in this particular listing, there should be a capital contribution amount listed, and it should possibly be $860. If you don't see that capital contribution amount, you're going to have to ask. And I would also ask the listing agent about, do you have any known assessments? Because sometimes what happens is there's an assessment. It's not a one-time fee. It may be a payment plan that goes over 5-10 years. Some sellers will pay that off. Others will say, sorry, you're going to assume that. And that's a decision that your client has to make, because not only they're responsible for the $430, but let's say there's an additional $100 a month that's going to go on for the next 6 years. That also has to be taken into consideration when they're going to get their mortgage. So that's why it's important to understand. In addition to that, the capital contribution amount is key, because that's money that the buyer has to bring to the table to contribute that. So that's an increase in the total amount of money that has to come to closing. I'm going to stop there. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Another thing I wanted to make sure that you understand is that there's an attached garage to this unit, and it has 2 spaces. Sometimes when you go into these units, you'll see marked spaces that'll say reserved, or they're numbered. You want to make sure that you ask how many parking spaces are assigned to the unit that they have is included in the sale. If it's 1 space or 2 space, and then you want to look to see where guest parking is, because when clients entertain, they want to know where where their friends can park. I'm going to stop there with any questions or comments. Okay. I think that covers the basics of it, maybe a little bit more detail than you wanted, but I hope that helps. With that, I'll turn it over to Anne Marie for any kind of closing remarks. Anybody out there, Renzo, Hitton, Stephanie, anything going on when you're looking at these units that I could help you with?
Is there any, by chance, the property management company charges fees at the time of closing to the buyer, which doesn't go to the HOA, but to themselves?
It does. So some of these most of these companies will charge what they call the condo certification process, where title will go into their website and enter in information to make sure what they're vetting out is A, what the monthly fee is, B, if there are any assessments, any additional fees. They need to verify what the capital contribution is, and they may charge $500 or more for that, to provide that information. It's a moneymaker for the property management company. And yes, the buyer will have to pay that as part of closing.
Thank you. Yeah, usually, so like, what is the range? What is the reasonable?
The company, I've seen $250 to $550. It's what the company charges, and they can get away with it.
And does it reflect in the any documentation?
It should be
anywhere?
in your closing documents with the closing costs.
No,
It should be.
not there, but in HOA, like
No.
rules, regulations, or anywhere.
No,
So,
it's something you're going to have to ask. What are they going to charge?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, my pleasure.
All right, can you hear us?
Yes,
I don't know if you mentioned it because I came in 5 minutes late.
that's
But
okay.
I think it's important that people know the type of financing their client has, especially if it's a government type of loan, FHA or VA. if the community they're looking at is FHA or VA approved.
So some of your communities, the VA is always acceptable on conventional loans. Where there's a challenge is to be able to accept FHA, they have to be qualified and submit that they are willing to take FHA loans.
And
And there's a,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
that's okay, go ahead.
Second part, which you talked about, if they're not fiscally responsible, they can run into an issue with a lower down payment conventional loan where there's a higher investor ratio than owner occupied, and the bank will want a larger down payment because they don't have enough reserves.
That's that, yes, that is absolutely a possibility in some of these units. That has occurred. I was just going to mention something else and I just forgot. Sorry.
My bad.
Oh, sorry. I'll think of it. Yes, that is, it's not common, but it does occur.
Right.
And
that's
when you
all.
do a listing, you do need to put in there that, you know, when it talks about acceptable financing, we get in down here and below, you know, as far as sometimes you'll see notes here where it's cash, conventional, and VA. But FHA is a different program altogether. And a townhouse has to put themselves on the list to be able to accept FHA loans.
Laurie, sometimes they've given the property management companies have given me like websites to go on to find the bylaws, and it just seems it's very convoluted.
They, so at closing, each and every buyer is required to get a copy of the bylaws. In addition to that, during attorney review, you can request them and that listing agent is supposed to send them to you.
Okay.
Now, these, they're, like I said earlier, you know, your bylaw pages versus you're probably just looking for quick answers to questions. How many pets and, you know, what can no pets, you know, that what are some basic restrictions as I'm showing here. Renting is another restriction that you might want to take a look at because there are communities where the builder has held on to rental units where, to your point, Mickey, as far as FHA loans are concerned, there is that rental to ownership ratio.
Right.
But if your client is an investor, you have to make sure they have not surpassed the limitation of how many units can be rented at a time. And that should be listed here in as far as what renting restrictions there are. So in this particular instance, there's no unit can be rented for less than 6 months. You can't use it as a hotel or a transient purpose, aka Verbos or Airbnbs. And no less than the entire unit may be leased. So they don't want you renting out rooms. And when leasing for 6 months for more, the lease must be in writing and may be subject to all the declaration and bylaws. And the owner must provide a copy of the lease to the HOA. Because they want to track how many are leased. Now, you know, your HOA is only good as your property management company. And if they're not collecting this and tracking it, you're never going to know. You're never going to know how many are rented.
Is there a way to find out any lawsuits done by HOA or
Yes. So
the HOA before even get to this one?
So there should be a disclosure on that. You would ask the listing agent on about that particular issue. And in addition to that, title is also required to ask that question. And in addition to that, the bank will ask that question. Because there's a community over in Ewing where there was an issue with the fact that there was a potential or is a potential lawsuit based on damages that were suffered in a particular unit due to leaks. So was it the builder or was it the homeowner that caused it? And that's in play. That was required to be disclosed because nobody knew who was going to be ultimately responsible, financially responsible for that. So the bank, depending on who your bank is, may not be writing a loan because of the risk.
Okay, so that should be part of the listing.
Yeah, if you, yeah, you're, and I have to tell you, Hinton, that Homeowners don't go to these meetings. They may not read the newsletter. They may not read their emails where this would be announced to the community. So it is a good idea for you to make a phone call if you can, and get in touch with the HOA point person for the community and ask all those questions. And then just make a note that, you know, the buyer is responsible for verifying all this information with the HOA, because you probably got it verbally. And so you also want to, you know, mitigate any kind of responsibility or liability on the information that was provided.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure. Questions, comments? Okay. Anne Marie, I didn't know if you wanted to wrap it up with anything.
No, I think that was good. Sorry, I missed some of it. But thanks. I thought it was very informative. Definitely
Okay.
appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.